Are you lonely in your marriage? Are you married to someone who avoids intimacy with you, emotional intimacy, sexual intimacy? I came across Dr. David Clark watching YouTube videos, and the way he speaks, straightforward, no bullshit, actually is more a style that men really go for. I actually love it myself. Now, if he comes from a religious angle, I am not religious. I don't read the Bible. I'm very like against all that stuff. But yet, this still is very good. I just ignore the religion part. If you are religious, you may especially like his book. He is speaking mostly to women because the majority of times it's the man who's intimacy avoidant, and he tells women exactly what they have to do to get the man to change. If you're a man watching this video, and chances are you are, most of the people watching my channel are men, just listen with an open mind. And I'm trying to actually get more females to subscribe to my channel. I want to speak more to women. So before I really go into this, because he really lays it on hard for the guys, you might think, well, who is this guy to be telling men that they're falling short in their marriages, which most men are. David Clark is a Christian psychologist, the author of 9 books, a graduate of Dallas Theological Seminary. He has been in full-time private practice for 25 years. He has been married to his wife since 1982. They have 4 children. And so he has worked with many couples. So I also want to go again into why do women file 85% of divorces? 85% of divorces are filed by women. So this on page 1 really got my attention. My research over the past 2 decades as a clinical psychologist and as a speaker presenting marriage seminars nationwide shows that 85% of all husbands have no clue when it comes to achieving closeness with their wives. No clue. And then he has a little quiz there that you can take to see if your guy is intimacy avoidant. Now, this book also applies to men who are married to women who are intimacy avoidant. And I really want to say that to some extent I'm intimacy avoidant, like we all have the level of intimacy that we're comfortable with. However, to be in relationships with people, we have to care how they feel. That's super important. And a lot of men, especially men that were raised, in the 50s and 60s and before, were raised at a time when men were not supposed to have feelings. They were ridiculed for having feelings as little boys. They didn't see their father have feelings. They saw all the male action figures on TV, the cowboys have no feelings, John Wayne had no feelings. James Bond has no feelings. They're just these macho guys. And then also society has really values men based on their success. Men are not valued by society based on their ability to be sensitive, to be intimate, to be emotionally connected. Women are. And then, of course, there's our biological differences. If you've had girls and you've had boys, if you're a parent, you will see that the girls love to play like with dolls, and they care about each other's feelings, and they want to talk. And boys in general, they're more into action and roughhouse and tumbling and playing. So, but a big change happened when I was a young mother raising my kids. In the 90s, there were books coming out about raising sensitive men, about how to raise boys. And like when I was a mother, I encouraged my boys to have feelings. So the younger generation of men is a lot more emotionally tuned in. And that's one reason that after my divorce, I hooked up mostly with guys in their 20s. I'm not going to say that all older men are intimacy avoidant. Okay, it's definitely not true. There are many who are very comfortable with intimacy. However, I find that the younger men are more comfortable with it as society has changed. Modern parents are more like, well, how do you feel? And your feelings are okay, and it's okay that you cry, and it's okay that you express yourself. So there has been that shift, but I do really see what he's getting at in this book is that, you know, I know a lot of men who don't show their feelings, you know. We don't do feelings. Anyway, so if you're married to a man who's intimacy avoidant, he doesn't know. He doesn't know what your needs are, okay? So as women, we have a responsibility also. For me, when I was married, I didn't even really realize. This book came out in the year that I left my husband for being intimacy avoidant. I wish I would have had this book before. So that's why I want to share this with you. As in our relationships, we have a responsibility to speak up for what our needs are. But the first step is knowing that it's okay for you to have needs. He doesn't really talk about that in this book. So I'm going to add that in for myself as the first step, is to realize that as a woman, you have needs to feel close to your partner. And you may not even realize that those needs are okay to have. You may have pushed them way down or said you don't have them or think you shouldn't have them. You may not even be in touch with your needs. You may just know that you're unhappy in your relationship because you don't feel close to your partner. So the first step really is honoring your feelings, honoring your needs, and being like, I'm okay. It's okay for me to have needs. I have needs in a relationship. And to then express those needs to your partner. All right. Okay, so what is an intimacy avoider? Someone who can talk, but he doesn't talk about his feelings or what's going on with him, or he doesn't look at you. He's not present with you. When he talks to you, he doesn't ever look at you. He doesn't share anything about himself. He doesn't want to talk about his day at work, or what he's thinking, or what he's feeling, or what his dreams are. He talks to you the same way that he talked to his buddy sitting next to him at a football game. You know, he might talk about generalities about events, logical observations, financial matters, his schedule, home maintenance, the kids, vacation plans, the kinds of things he could share with anyone. But you're his wife. You need more than this. But don't get mad at him, okay? I don't want you to get mad at him because he doesn't know. He didn't learn it. He doesn't know what you need. And so we're going to get to that in a moment. Don't get mad at him. We're just laying the foundation of you have needs, and he is not tuned into that at all. This is an example. Let's keep talking about what is an intimacy avoider. Your husband is a master at avoiding intimacy. He has been doing it his whole life. He will do whatever it takes to weasel out of a close, deep conversation. And these are some of the things you may see going on. If you ask him, "How are you doing?" he'll say, "Why do you ask?" So he responds to your question with a question. He may also plead ignorance. For example, if you say, why don't you want to kiss me? He'll say, "I don't know." Just pleading innocence. He may generalize. So if you say, "How was your day? How was work?" He'll say, "Fine, okay." Or even, "I don't want to talk about work. I'm home now. I don't want to talk about it." Could be another one. No response. He might not even answer you at all. The refusal to talk. I just said that. "I don't want to talk about it." That's another one. Intimacy avoidant, another one. Letting you talk all the time. "I love to listen to you talk." So he may really like listening to you talk, but he may also tune you out, and it's also a way to avoid him having to share about himself. Snap, then leave. He'll get angry, snap at you, and leave the room. So that plays right into his hands. He'll say that you're overreacting. I don't know. My husband didn't do any of that stuff. He was not a jerk like that. But, just kind of see for some of these examples. He wants to drop it and move on. When you try to talk through a conflict, he will accuse you of dwelling on the past, or he may say, I've moved on. However, he fails to recognize that the past is not the past until you have dealt with it together. If you've dealt with something, then it's in the past. But until you've dealt with it, it isn't in the past. It's still right there. Another thing, the intimacy avoidant man is too busy to talk. He's just way too busy to talk. He has to work, watch television, dink around on the computer, do yard work, fix things around the house, read the paper, sleep, go play soccer, do stuff with the kids, anything he can do to avoid a conversation with you or intimacy with you or sex with you. He can't talk, but he can have sex. Ever try to talk and your spouse starts fondling you? You're trying to connect emotionally and your conversationally impaired husband is in groping mode. When you don't respond favorably, what a shocker, he gets offended and accuses you of rejecting him. So he doesn't want to take you on dates. He doesn't want to hold your hand. He doesn't want to look you in the eyes and talk to you. But in the middle of the night, he wants to roll over and slide a stick in you. Intimacy avoider. The logical man. Since he buries his emotions, he's only aware of cold, hard logic. So he tries his logic to talk you out of your feelings. Honey, you shouldn't feel that way. Honey, you're way too intense. Honey, calm down. Let's look at the facts. The martyr. When you press him to talk, he'll complain, I guess I can't ever please you. The genetic excuse. If all else fails, your intimacy avoidant will resort to these old standards. Hey, this is just who I am. This is just who I am. I can't help it. Bogus, bogus, bogus. It may be who he is, but he doesn't have to stay that way. Unless you were freeze-dried right after the wedding and put into cold storage, you both need to change as the marriage progresses. He can change, and he needs to if you're going to build an intimate relationship. Okay, so those were examples of an intimacy avoidant man. Do you see your husband in this or your boyfriend in this? Now, why did you marry an intimacy avoider? He gives 3 possible reasons. I'm going to add my own. He gives 3 possible reasons. One is you had no clue because you were in love. In the beginning, he was very much into you. And he might have said, I like that dress. I had a lousy day at work. I think there's a rock in my shoe. These statements were fascinating, stimulating, and insightful to you, but no, they're actually not. They were superficial, and you didn't know it. But I'm going to say that the reason you didn't know it is because you grew up in an intimacy-devoid home. Your dad was intimacy avoidant, and your mom didn't challenge him or speak up for her needs. So what you saw modeled growing up was a good man who provided, he did stuff around the house, he paid the bills, he came home every night, he didn't cheat, he wasn't an alcoholic, but he was not intimately connected to your mother. So you didn't see that growing up. You don't even know what intimacy looks like. And that is, I think, the main reason. And in the beginning, when you're in love, you overlook things that are obvious, or you think you could be okay with it. You might think, oh, I'm okay with this, because the in-love feelings overwhelm everything. Number two, you may have realized that he had intimacy avoidant traits before you married him, but in your love-crazed mind, you were convinced you could change him. You're thinking when something like, when we're married, we will be closer. He will open up when he knows me better. Or he will open up after I bear his children. No, he is who he is. Or there are other aspects of him that I really value, so I can be okay with the lack of intimacy. I can be okay with this part because I like all the other parts. You know, in my case, I made that conscious decision. Wrong on all counts. As you found out later, marriage did not bring you closer. And number three reason you married an intimacy avoider is because most men on earth fall into this category, so you didn't have much of a chance to dodge the bullet. I'm going to say that this could be true for older men. I think that younger men are much better at this, again, because of how they were raised. Being married to an intimacy avoider is not pretty. It is very, 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 very bad. Now, there are two myths in the Christian community and popular culture that can prevent wives from developing intimate marriages. The first myth is, just keep loving him and he'll change. Just keep loving him. And I've heard women say this before. If I just love him enough, he will eventually change. Or, you know, if I pray enough, if I'm just a better wife, if I just keep loving him, my love can change him. That's also a strategy that women may use, like when they're first dating a guy. If I just show him how much I love him, then he will want to be with me. That's a myth. The second myth is he's doing the best that he can. Okay. He's doing the best that he can. He was just born that way. Okay. So then he goes into how intimacy avoidant men aren't just born, they're also made. Chances are your husband's parents raised him to be this way. Take a close look at your husband's father. I bet you will see an intimacy challenged man, your husband's original role model. Your husband probably never, and I mean that literally, saw a significant man in his life share something personal. It just didn't happen. Dad didn't do it, nor did his grandfathers, not his brother, nor Uncle Harry, nor any of his male teachers or coaches. So he learned not to share personal things with other men, and certainly not with women. What he did observe repeatedly for many years was Dad and other key men in his life choke back emotions, stuff personal reactions, refuse to answer personal questions posed by women, say as little as possible and stick to the facts, be logical, avoid conflict, and show emotion only when watching sports. Chances are your husband also saw his mom and dad develop and maintain a marriage devoid of real intimacy. It was an intimacy avoidant and an intimacy avoidant enabler. And as long as we are not speaking up, ladies, for what our needs are in a loving, authentic way, we are also intimacy avoidant enablers. We are part of the loop of intimacy avoidant every time we allow it and we don't speak up. We're going to go into how to speak up in a moment. He saw his mom carry on bravely for years, enabling her intimacy avoiding husband and acting as if everything was okay. The truth was she felt unhappy and terribly unfulfilled, just as you feel now. However, your husband couldn't discern his mother's pain. He thought, and still does, that his parents' marriage was fine. He actually believes the relationship they had and still may have is as good as it gets. And I've heard so many men say this, and it always makes my red flag go up. They had a good marriage. They got along. They never fought. They built a solid, stable life together. Is it any wonder he does not know how to be intimate with you? All the men he grew up with modeled intimate, avoidant behavior. As a result, he never saw a man and a woman engage in a personal, deep conversation. He's never experienced emotional intimacy with another person. He has no idea what it takes to get it or how to achieve it. All he knows is how to avoid intimacy. Okay, so a lot of people look at their parents' relationship with no clue how unhappy their mother really is. Okay, now again, he goes into what I mentioned before, culture. American culture finishes the job of making you a man resist intimacy in relationships. We talk about the actors that play hard-edged, macho, tough as steel, independent, emotionally distant men. Humphrey Bogart, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Clint Eastwood, Bruce Willis. These guys only display emotion at their on-screen enemies. They don't talk much and they don't bother with romance. They keep personal thoughts and feelings to themselves. They teach men that remaining in control and emotionless is what manhood is all about. It may work in the movies, but it doesn't work in marriage. Now, it's also American culture pushes men to avoid intimacy by placing a massive emphasis on career success. If you're not making serious money in a high-profile, impressive job in America, you're a loser, a hapless, pitiful loser. All the internet and newspapers and TV shows profile corporate CEOs and entrepreneurs who have amassed power, fame, and fortune. But you probably don't know that most of these men are workaholics who have gone through 2 or 3 wives and left damaged children in their wake. But who cares? They're rich. They've made it. They're real men. Most men feel insecure because of this unrelenting cultural pressure to succeed in their careers and provide for their families. Unlike women who can define themselves as wives and mothers, men have only careers to define them. They're forced to focus on their jobs in order to feel some sense of accomplishment and success. Then they cover up their insecurities by putting up a tough, confident exterior, talking only about superficial subjects in which they feel confident. Okay. So, he goes through a 4-step process of what women can do. And one of them is to have a team. It's like, have a girlfriend you can talk to, have a spiritual practice. He talks about God, but you can be whatever spiritual practice you want. Don't make the guy your number one thing in life. Have some other stuff going on. Okay? And then you teach him what you need. Okay? So men are almost universally oblivious to social cues that wives find obvious. While she thinks she's sending clear signals about what she would like him to do, she isn't. She's sending subtle, coded signals that only other women understand. There's zero chance he's going to get the message. When talking to men, it's best to be very direct. It's just best to be direct with anyone. Don't send coded signals. You have to say exactly, hey, I need to talk to you. These are the things I need in a relationship. I'm not happy in this relationship. You gotta just lay it out there, okay? So this is what you do. Ladies, any ladies watching this, on a one-on-one meeting with your husband, you're going to check your emotional intensity at the door. You're not trying to get a response. You're going to share what your needs are, okay, in a way that he can receive and understand it. You're going to be blunt, direct, specific, rational, and you're going to set up in black and white detail. Okay, so the first thing you do This is going to end up in you writing a letter about your needs and presenting it to him, but you've got to lay a bit of a foundation first and let him know, give him a chance. Like, you don't want to ever like spring things on people or whatever, it's just, be calm and be kind. So to set up the first meeting, you go to your husband, sit him down, take his hands in yours, look into his eyes, and say, "There is something very important I want to talk to you about. I'm not ready to do it now because I'm still sorting through some things. I want the kids to be out of the house when we talk. It needs to be just the two of us. Let's meet in 3 days." So you schedule a meeting with him in 3 days. And so that, just go about your business. Don't tell him what it's going to be about. I noticed too, when I was married, like my husband would want time to like let things integrate or sift through or just prepare, and let's give a little space, just give him a little space to like be prepared that there's going to be a talk. Okay. So at the first meeting, you say these words. I'm going to read this. "I've been thinking and praying." Now, if you don't pray, just leave this part out. I do not think that the fact that this author is religious interferes at all with this process. You can just leave that part out, okay? Let's say his name is Ben. "Ben, I've been thinking and praying a lot about our marriage these past few weeks. The truth is, I'm not happy. I have really important, deep needs that only you can meet as my husband, and you're not meeting them. That's partly your fault. It's also partly my fault. I realize that I haven't made my needs clear to you. You can't meet them if you don't know exactly what they are. I've read this book." Show him the book. "I've read this book, and I think it can help us build a terrific marriage. I have decided to follow all the steps described by Dr. Clark and would love for you to join me so we can work on our marriage together. The first step is for me to clearly communicate to you the needs I have as your wife. Please read chapters 5, 6, and 7 in the coming week. In these chapters, Dr. Clark explains what the Bible says about the husband's role in marriage." I'm going to edit this out and be like, "But you don't have to believe in God or the Bible, but just please read these chapters. And by the way, chances are your guy is not going to read that book because men don't like reading books, especially books about relationships." But let me continue. "Honey, I've read these chapters, and believe me, they paint the picture of the husband I need you to be. Please understand that it's not just me saying that I have these needs. It's God saying that I have these needs. I want to meet in a week to discuss these chapters. Feel free to write your thoughts and reactions in the book or on a piece of paper. I particularly want you to tell me how you think you're doing in the role of a biblical husband, as stated in the book. What time next week will work for you?" Now, it's important that you don't show a lot of emotions. You want to be calm. You're sharing something you want. You're not going to dump a bunch of emotions and intensity on him. That is not fair. So you've got to stay really calm, and you're just sharing what you would like, okay? And he doesn't have to do it. He's a free agent. But if you can just put these words in, then he has a chance to reflect on it without having to be all defensive and trying to deal with your emotional intensity. So men don't like to read. Don't get your hopes up. You will be lucky if you read these 3 chapters. It's very possible your husband will be blown away by what you say at this meeting. He may be shocked or confused or a little angry. If he's a typical man, he thinks your marriage is great. Now you're saying it is not? He may have considerable trouble adjusting to this reality. If he wants to, let him discuss his feelings with you. Whenever a man wants to talk, that is a good thing. But do not reassure him. Do not say things will be okay, because that's going to signal he doesn't have to change. he does have to change, okay? If he has any questions, just direct him to those chapters. Okay, that was the first meeting. The second meeting, if he hasn't read the chapters, the second meeting will be short. Express your anger and disappointment that he didn't care enough about you to read them. Do not lose your temper. Do not raise your voice. Just move on to the next step, which is the letter. If he has read the chapters, thank him and ask him to share his reactions. Repeat that these chapters describe the kind of husband you need him to be. Tell him you know he can become such a husband and you don't expect him to do it alone. Share with him that the next step will be you reading some of him in a few days and schedule that meeting. Okay, so in the first meeting, so again, you're going to tell your husband that you want to schedule a meeting with him in 3 days, okay? At the first meeting, you tell him that you're not happy in your marriage. You would like him to read a few chapters in this book that explain the kind of husband you'd like him to be. And you schedule a second meeting. At the second meeting, you ask him if he's read the chapters. If he has, it's a short meeting. If he hasn't, let him know that you're angry and disappointed, that he didn't care enough about you to read that. Either way, you schedule a third meeting. At the third meeting is your letter of needs, okay? And I am going to read this entire letter because I think it's very helpful for women who have never been in touch with their needs, because, see, I think that for the intimacy avoidant man, it requires an intimacy avoidant woman, a woman who is either not in touch with her needs or doesn't feel that her needs are valid or has difficulty expressing her needs, asking for what she wants. She is also avoiding intimacy and connection. But unlike him, who has no clue that she's unhappy, she knows she's unhappy, so she has more of the responsibility. See, he isn't unhappy, so we can't get mad at him. So the ball really lays in the woman's court. She has been avoiding speaking her voice, speaking her truth, and speaking up for her own needs for connection. So, I think it's really the fault of the woman if I'm going to pick a fault. And in my marriage, it was definitely my fault for not speaking up. It was my fault for not going to see a therapist by myself when I was unhappy. It was my fault for not realizing that my needs were valid, for diminishing my needs, for making compromises in my head, like, well, he's the breadwinner, so I'm not going to ask him for anything else. I don't want to rock the boat. My needs make me weak. It's weak to have needs. All those stories and limiting beliefs I had that kept me from speaking up are mine. That's why I'm making this video, because I wish I had come across something like this years ago. It doesn't mean I would have divorced, but I would have loved to have had this discussion years ago in my marriage, early on in my marriage. So, the letter of needs. Now, this letter of needs, this is written from a Christian perspective. For me, one of the needs of the women reading this is they want a man who is a godly man, a spirit, who goes to church and studies the Bible with them. But I think for me, it would be practicing meditation together, going on spiritual retreats together, talking about God together. I think it's really important to have some kind of like a spiritual connection with the partner, whether it's nature or God or religious. That's just me. You may not want that, but I'm going to read this just as an example. Maybe I'll just read some of it. I don't know. Let me just get started here on this letter. Okay, this is kind of long. This is going to take me like 5 or 10 minutes to read, but I think it's really important because this is a man telling women how to speak to their husbands about their needs. Okay? This is not from a woman. And I think that makes it even more powerful because here's a man saying, ladies, you're allowed to have these needs. These are the needs of a woman, and you are to ask your man to meet these needs. It is your role as a woman to have these needs met and to hold your husband accountable to opening up and growing in his life to be a better person and to meet your needs. And for the guys watching my video who's like, what about these women? All of this is assuming that the woman is a passionate woman who loves her husband. We're not speaking of women who are abusive, alcoholics, cheaters, and, toxic. We're speaking of the majority of women who are actually wanting a healthy relationship. This is the woman who is writing this letter. Ben, I don't want you to have any doubt about what I need from you, so I've written this letter spelling out exactly what my needs are as your wife. After I read it, I will hand it to you. I want you to keep it in a safe place permanently. If you ever forget my needs, just pull out the letter and read it again. First and most important, God says you are to be a godly man. My deepest need as your wife is to see you in a growing, vital relationship with Jesus Christ. If you're not walking closely with Jesus, you won't have the power to meet any of my needs. Please do these things to keep your spiritual life on track. Have a daily quiet time with the Lord in which you pray and read your Bible. Be accountable in a meeting at least once a week to a godly man for your spiritual growth and role as my husband. Attend a men's conference once a year. Attend a church with the kids and me every week. I also need you to be my spiritual leader. Please make sure we pray together for at least 5 minutes 3 times a week. Please meet with me once a week for 15 or 20 minutes so each of us can share what's going on in our spiritual lives. We can help each other grow spiritually. Dr. Clark has another book, A Marriage After God's Own Heart, that teaches couples how to spiritually bond. I want us to read it together and apply the principles of bonding in Christ as a couple. I need you to lead once a week family devotions. I would be happy to work with you in preparing for these meetings. I want a Bible passage read and discussed, an opportunity for family concerns to be raised, and time at the end for prayer. Second, God says you are to be my lover. I know you love me, but it's essential you love me in the specific ways I need to feel loved. Only I can define how I feel loved. Communication is very important to me. I need you to set aside 30 minutes on 4 days of each week, as early in the evening as possible, for the two of us to talk. I want to talk in the den without any distractions. No kids, no television, no computer, no newspaper, and no answering the door or the telephone. I need you to come to me every evening we've scheduled to talk and say, it's time for our talk. When we talk, I need you to listen to me in the active way Dr. Clark explains: eye contact, body language, feeding back key words and phrases, identifying my emotions, and reacting to what I say. Show interest in my life and the people and events in it. Ask me questions about what I do and how I feel. I also need you to talk to me. I can't tell you how much I long to hear what's going on inside of you, your feelings, your stresses, what God is teaching you every day, and your hopes and dreams. Please take a small pad with you wherever you go each day and jot down things you would like to share during our talks. When we have a conflict, I need you and me too to follow Dr. Clark's rules for a fair fight. One of us at a time, listen and reflect, build understanding first, see it as a process that happens in stages, and come to a decision. Let's practice these rules together. I don't mind you walking away from a conflict if you're too angry to continue, but I need you to come back so we can keep talking until we've resolved it. When I'm upset, just let me vent and help me feel understood. It's when I'm hurt and angry that I really need you to listen and reflect. Just feed back to me what I'm saying and feeling. Please, no male logic. That just makes me angrier. Even though I know it's difficult for you, I need you to apologize and keep letting me talk when you've hurt my feelings. Don't walk away permanently. I want you to come back and comfort me and reassure me of your love. Let me talk it out. I'm writing my basic fundamental needs in this letter. These are my core needs that are an integral part of who I am. These needs don't change, but I have other needs that change from day to day. I want you to do your best to meet these needs as well. Part of understanding and respecting me is to ask me every day what I need from you. This is how you can meet these fluctuating needs. Please ask me twice a day what my needs are, in the morning and after work as our evening begins. The mere action of asking me what I need will make me feel very loved. Plus, I'll tell you specifically what you can do for me so you'll be able to target and meet these daily needs. I need you to romance me. Ask me out on a date once a week. Half the time, please get the babysitter and plan the date. At least once a month, do something with me on the date that I would like to do. Walk on the beach, see a chick flick, go to a craft fair, or walk to the mall. I also need daily physical affection from you. Not sexually intimate touching like we do in foreplay, but non-sexual touching. Kissing, hugging, holding my hand, or giving me a neck massage. I need to hear I love you at least once a day. Praise me for who I am, my character traits, or what I do for you and the kids. About once every 2 or 3 weeks, get me a card and write a special note in it. Third, God says you are to be a servant leader like Jesus. Please do your share of the household chores. I will feel loved and have more energy when you do your chores. Ask me every day what needs to be done around the house. Let's make decisions together in all major areas: parenting, finances, major purchases, home repairs, our spiritual lives, time spent with our respective in-laws, and so on. Please discuss significant decisions with me thoroughly. Pray with me about them, and then we'll settle on a course of action. Well, that's about it. I know this is a lot to take in and digest, but this is what God wants you to do and what I need you to do. I'm sorry for not being clear on what my needs are until now. I have to admit that I've been unhappy because you haven't been meeting enough of my needs. I have felt unloved and I have lost respect for you. I have not felt close to you emotionally, so I haven't been too interested in our physical relationship. Sex is more of a chore for me than the joyful, passionate experience God wants it to be. If you don't meet my needs, I cannot be a good wife to you in any area. I hope and pray that this letter begins a process that will change our marriage and bring us much closer. I don't expect you to be perfect, just committed to working hard to meet my needs and become the husband I know you can be. I will be following Dr. Clark's strategy. If you want to know his entire strategy, that would be great. Read the book and we'll discuss each step as we implement it. If you don't want to read any more than chapters 5, 6, and 7, that is fine. I will do the steps and let you know what I'm doing and why as we go along. Thank you for listening. I don't expect you to give me your reaction now. You'll need time to process all of this. Let me know when you're ready to talk about it, and then sign your name. When you finish reading, hand him the letter. If he has no immediate response, and he probably won't get up and walk away, if he wants to talk about it, he will find you. Now he also talks about how women can't hold grudges, how they have to show their men love and affection and give the men sex, how they have to be good wives also, okay? So do not think that this is all about the man just doing stuff for the woman. It's going to be a mutually thing, you know, be submissive to your husband, but don't be like a doormat and all of that. So, but I'm already 45 minutes into this video and I can't go on and on and on. So if you're interested in this, just get the book. This is as far as I got in the book so far. And I want to say one more thing. It's important for men to maintain their own boundaries as well. So a woman may ask for things, but that doesn't mean you have to give it to her. If you're a man that is absolutely like, I don't want intimacy with you, I don't want to do this, then you have to actually own that. Do not, you got to be true to yourself. And the problem comes in when men become such doormats that they do whatever the woman wants. They don't have their own sense of self and their own boundaries. And then the woman disrespects them. And for those guys, I recommend No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. So the key to a healthy relationship is we have to know our own self, our own boundaries, and still be willing to connect and care about how the people in our lives feel. And that's all that we're saying in this Married But Lonely book, is that men have to be able to tune into how the woman feels. They have to listen to her feelings and not just dismiss her as an object that's just there to serve them dinner and to fuck. To be a little bit relational, okay? To just be a little bit more open, a little bit more relational, to care about her feelings, okay? Because the nature of a relationship is really built on feelings. That doesn't mean you have to listen to her gripe. And I don't think that women should go on and on talking that the man has to listen. He can say, hey, you know what, honey? I'll listen to you for 10 minutes twice a week. And after that, if you have more to say, there's your therapist and there are your girlfriends, okay? So you have to have your own limits as a man as well. You can't just do whatever she wants. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day.